Hello, everyone, and we're live. Welcome to our virtual presentation of how to slowly kill yourself and others in America with Kiese, Laymon, and Minda. This event will include a Q&A, so feel free to submit a question by using the Ask a Question feature at the very bottom of the screen. You can also vote for any questions you like, and they'll make their way to the very top of the list. Also, please consider supporting our bookstore tonight by purchasing a copy of tonight's featured book. You can do so by clicking on the green purchase button directly below the viewer's screen. It will take you to our website where you can complete your purchase. Vroman's bookstore is 126 years old. We're the oldest independent bookstore in Southern California, so it's patrons like yourselves that keep our doors open. And our next virtual event is scheduled for next Tuesday, November 17th, with David Yoon and Adam Silvera. They will be discussing David Yoon's new book, Super Fake Love Song. And with those announcements out of the way, let me introduce our guests. Kiese Laymon is the author of the novel Long Division and the best-selling memoir Heavy, which won the 2019 Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Nonfiction and was named the best book of 2018 by the New York Times, Publisher Weekly, NPR, The Washington Post, and more. Selections from his newly reissued essay collection, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America, were included in the Best American Series and the Atlantic's Best Essays. Joining him tonight is Minda, the founder of Taunt, a local indie outlet for Louisville. She has a series of essays for long reads on dating and politics, and her writing has been featured by the Los Angeles Review of Books, the Washington Post, the Guardian, the Oxford American, and many, many more. And with that said, let me turn off my camera so we can have our guests on full screen. Enjoy the talk, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, what's up?
We were just chatting in the green room about how we're gonna have to do a real world rewatch because there's a lot about like Black male masculinity in like the early aughts and 90s that we need to talk about that we didn't get to talk about at the time. So
Black male masculinity and Puck, because you brought up
right. So, you know, sign up for that event following this event.
Wow. Oh, yo, thank you so much, fam. I just want to say I was so happy when you agreed to do this. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this with you is because I'm jealous of your writing, as I keep telling you over and over again. And also because you write about yourself and journeys in and out of yourself so well. And this book is, among other things, about journeys in and out of the South. So I was just like, let me just roll the dice to see if Minda would jump in here. And I've learned so much about, like, in this weird way, travel writing and relationship travel writing from your work. So thank you for even coming up in here.
Okay.
I'm being serious, man.
I'm the one that's thankful. Like, I can still remember when How to Kill Yourself and Others Slowly in America first came out and Long Division. And I bought both of those books. I was living in cold ass Denver away from everyone that I love. And I remember like I was sitting on my couch. It was super sunny and I was reading the book and I like closed it and like looked at the cover and opened it again. It was just like, why is this book so good though? Like
Wow.
It doesn't even make any sense. And then I went on Facebook and was Facebooking about how good the book was. And then somehow maybe I like looked you up and realized we had mutual friends. And I was like, y'all should tell your friend, this is a really good book. And they were like, just send him a Facebook friend request and you can tell him yourself. And at that time, I didn't realize you could just send Facebook friend requests to writers that you like. So yeah, so I mean, and now like here we are. So yeah, I've been a long time admirer of your work. And if I'm not careful when I'm drafting essays and stuff, I'll slip into Kiese voice. I'll start doing that repetition you do.
Oh, it's shit. Like, you trying to call me out.
We were young Black women fine and free on the dance floor who felt like we deserved to be young Black women fine and free on the dance floor. I have to revise that out of my work.
Yeah, you can let it. You should let it ride. You should, because I be stealing your shit. I be stealing your shit off it. I'm just gonna let you know.
Yeah, that's not true. That is not true.
But you know what? Like, but when I read, like, when you submitted a piece for Gawker, have we already been in I guess, yeah, we've been in contact at that point.
Yeah, we've been Facebook friends for a little bit, and I hit you up and I was like, is it weird if I send you some of my work? And you were like, is it weird if I ask you for some of your work? I was like, well, you're an editor, so I don't think so.
Right. Yeah, and I was just you know, this is real. Like, I have a hard time as a writer writing about relationships, period. Like, and that's tough because writing is about relationships. You'd be a relationship with the world, you know, yourself, people. But the first joint that you gave me, I was just like, oh shit, like the comic. Like I was just like, oh, you know, you're scared to write about these relationships because you're scared to like use the comic to explore some of the tragic or like the just like clumsy. And I just always was amazed from the rip how you use the comic to not like push down the tragic, but to like really almost like highlight the tragic and the clumsy. But the clumsy is the shit that I was most like amazed with your work. And I wondered if you try to do that. Like, are you intentionally looking for like the clumsy part of relationships and then you highlight that?
No, in fact, I've never even really kind of thought about that until you said it, where I was like, yeah, I do. I do clumsy very well. And I can remember people highlighting that in my writing. Like when you first meet someone on like a first date, that like, do we hug? Do we like shake hands?
Right.
Now we stand 6 feet apart, but back then there used to be that confusion. So capturing those confusing moments. No, I think I just play it out from memory of the way that it happened. And maybe I think of myself as kind of like a clumsy, awkward person. So it just feels honest to include these like exchanges.
I feel that. And I think it's like one thing to like, you know, keep characters or real people in the house and like explore the clumsiness. And then the house sort of becomes like a microphone for all of the like mishaps in a relationship. But what you do is you can do that, but then you can also take people through space. And I just think, especially like Black women and like, I'm saying travel writing, but that's not really what I mean. But Black women and like travel writing, like Black women and like moving through space, like with all like the cacophony of all of that shit going on. Sadly, like we just don't have enough of that I think a lot of people are telling those stories. We don't have enough American literature that is like effectively exploring them stories. And that's what you do. I mean, that's one of the many things you do so well to me. You know,
I do think about that a lot, like flexing forward and backwards in time and like thinking about all these like different layers of time happening at the same time and writing essays that have a sense of, you know, there was life before this and there will be life after this. I think is really important when you're writing nonfiction. I guess when you're writing fiction too, if you want people to have that kind of moment where they close the book and they miss their friend. But yeah, I do think about like just the way that time and memory are just constantly like
right. And you know what, like Minda, it's interesting because, you know, courage is kind of cliche. The word courage has become cliche and people use courage as a proxy for so many other things. And I might be doing the same thing right here, but I remember sensing a peculiar kind of courage in the first piece I read from you and the last piece I read from you, but also in Facebook posts. And I wanted to do for real, man, because you wrote a little while ago, and this is, I think it's important for us to be having this conversation. And if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it at all, obviously. But Kentucky, you know, the world is like finally realized Kentucky, like Black people lived in Kentucky. You know what I'm saying? Like other than the people who play for UK and play for Louisville, right? And you said on Facebook, you were like, "Don't ask me to write about Breonna Taylor, y'all. I don't have it in me to do. I'm from Kentucky. I'm a Black woman, Black Filipino woman. I can't. I'm not doing it right now." Can you talk about the decision to not do what like market-driven like writers would sort of dream of? Like, oh shit, this happened in Kentucky. Let me write my essay about it. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, you know, actually, Joy and I both talked a little bit about this last week at the UK event because, you know, Joy is a Louisville writer too. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, we were both like, there's just something about it that doesn't feel even though like I'm a Black woman from Louisville, like it just didn't feel like mine to write about yet. And it also felt like I had a lot of different emotions and experiences, and a lot of the outlets that were reaching out to me were outlets I had never worked with before, that were all of a sudden the verdict comes down and they're, you know, they're in my DMs and they want these pieces. It's like, what are you talking about right now? Like, like what are you talking? Like, I don't know you, and you're asking me to write about something very personal to like my being and to my city, and you want this like quick turnaround time, and it's with an editor I've not worked with before, mostly like white editors that were like hitting me up like that, and it was just like I don't feel the need to put myself out there like that. Like when I have like I imagine at some point I'll have something to say about Breonna Taylor. And I have been thinking a lot about, I mean, obviously the whole thing is just tragic in so many different ways, but I think what really, and I was actually texting Danny about this, what really gets me is that every time you like log on to social media, there's a fresh photo of her, there's a fresh video of her just doing all the things Black girls do at that age, hanging out with their friends, getting dressed up with for their boyfriend, doing their birthday thing. And it feels like she is like living on because of that. But like, at some point, like the pictures are going to run out and I'm still going to be like posting my Instagram photos or whatever. And so I think that's why it hits different, even, you know, beyond the fact that we're both Black women from Louisville, but just the social media era, you know, like you can see her life unfolding. You can see the people who loved her and cared about her in these comments. So I've been thinking about that some, but yeah, I mean, I guess I feel really fortunate as a writer that I have a day job. So I wasn't really like in any sort of financial position where I need to like sell out my feelings to get that essay off real quick. So
that's real. That's real. I feel that. I mean, do you, you know, I thought a lot about this when I was writing that first essay, How to Slowly Kill Yourself. The line, I think there's a thin line between exploration and exploitation, and a lot of it has to do with ethic and will and skill. And so, you know, I'm torn often when these like extrajudicial killings of Black folk happen, and we are artists. And now a lot of us are artists who people who love us dearly expect us to deal with that shit with them, not for them, but with them. So, but I think there's ways to do it. And one way to do it sometimes is to say, I'm not ready to do it yet. And so that's one of the reasons I really loved what you said. Like, yeah, I'm gonna write some shit. Maybe I'm writing it now, but I'm not about to collaborate with someone who never wanted to collaborate with me until Black Death, because I don't trust it. That's what I felt was the subtext of it.
Yeah, like all of a sudden you realized you needed a Black woman writer from Kentucky, like today. Like you had months to cultivate this relationship. You know, I only have one essay that I regret writing that I was like, that I really like just wrote it on some like need to like get an essay, get a check kind of deal. And it was like just really sloppily written. So you know, I really believe in the power of revision and, you know, this like kind of parade of revision that you're forcing through the end of 20 into 2021. And I will be hopping on that and at some point rewriting the hell out of that essay because it just really it wasn't there. So
I feel that. Okay.
Don't all like start sending me essays either and be like, was it this one?
Right. I think a lot when I read your work also about fear, even and people who meet you too, like, you know, on the surface, it would seem like Fear and Minda are like either like arch enemies or just like so intimately woven you can't even see Fear no more. But can we talk a little bit about Fear? Because I was afraid to put this essay collection out when I initially put it out, and I was really afraid to re-release it. But does Fear, like, can you talk about like your manifestations of fear, for example, in the piece that you wrote for A Measure of Belonging? Were you afraid at all when you wrote that essay?
Yeah, I was. And it took me a long time to even figure out what I wanted to write about. And then I wrote that essay and then it published. And then I just kind of like woke up in the middle of the night one night and was like, what if somebody like there's a line in the essay like where I write about my auntie growing up, and she's like she's had her challenges in life, and I have this line about how you start to talk about people in past tense before they've passed. And I just kind of like woke up in the middle of the night one night and was like, oh no, like what if that line gets read as, she's been like written off, nobody's thinking about her anymore, versus it's hard to make like meaningful memories with someone who's like in that struggle, and I'd hate for someone else who like loves and cares about her to read that line and misread it. And I was like really kind of like torn up about it for a while. And then the book tour came along, and I've read it, and other people have read it, and it seems like people understand the line as I intended it. But there was definitely a part of me that was like, ooh, I wish I had just like put one more sentence in there to kind of
I hadn't really reread the reissue since I turned it in a few months ago, and of How to Slowly, and it was like one of the first times I've read my own work, and then I was just like, yo, you fucked up, and like you should have, like there was so much more you should have taken out, not like often when I go back to my shit, it's like I'm like, this is what I could have added, but there's so much I could have like leaned it out even more. But when I don't know, like, are you a reviser who does a lot of like taking out, or do you feel more comfortable like adding?
I have to, because what happens is I'll write an essay, and when you're writing an essay, you're just like writing straight truth, and then you get to that part where you're like, ooh, and and like in my mind, it's almost like a little mental tag, like I'm gonna have to come back to that section when I'm ready to be honest. And so then when I revise, I come back and I can't deal with the whole truth at once. So when we get to that extra truthy part and the revision part, then that's like where I need to focus on like being as honest as possible in those sections. But when you think about it though, the essays that you were the most afraid of publishing and putting out in the world are always the ones that I get the most messages about how helpful it was to someone, or they, just related so heavy to it. And so,
it's like those.
But let me ask you this though. And actually I wrote this note down all right. So when your epigraph is this Imani Perry quote, you don't tell all the secrets when you're trying to get free, right? And so when you're geared for confession, as nonfiction writers are, personal essayists, memoirists, the trouble becomes what to keep and how do you shake this sense that if you haven't spoken on something publicly, you're hiding it. Like, I don't know how people who aren't writers like get through their day without feeling like relieved in some way, because it's like, well, I'm not hiding this thing. Like I wrote about it. Like I spoke my truth. And then I remember like there are like everyday people who are not writers who like just, I don't know, just talk to their best friend about their shit and then feel okay. So like, how as writers do we shake that sense that just because we haven't talked about it publicly, we're hiding it? Because there's obviously a major middle ground there that we could be existing in.
That's literally one of the greatest questions I think we should ask ourselves, because I don't know, fam. Like I'm a delusional person like everybody on this crowdcast, like I have like mastered ways to delude myself and often call that shit courage, or often call that shit good art, but what I usually don't call it is cowardice. But there's some things we should be afraid to do, and that's what I was saying was so good about your Facebook message to the editors who were asking you. But there's some lines in that book. When I'm writing that piece, it's called Mississippi, An Awakening in Days. Came out, a version of it came out at Vanity Fair first, and then I'm trying to rely on like traditional uses of dramatic irony. And when I'm in West Virginia, I'm talking about how I don't want the people who brought me to the talk to treat me black, and I was just so afraid of leaving that line in, because like on one hand, it's like, am I critiquing potentially like my kind of anti-blackness And or am I doing that shit we just do when we talk to one another? Like, yo, this motherfucker about to treat me like a nigga, bro. Like, I don't, you know. But regardless, it was like I wrote it, and then I wrote all of this shit on top of it, and I wrote all this shit below it to sort of contextualize it. And then I took all that shit out, but I was mad scared. Do you know what I mean? Because like, anti-blackness is so real. Like, we all carry that shit into our art. Even those of us who are blessed with like black abundance, we still. And so like, there's just so many lines like that in everything I do where I'm just like, should I just let it ride, or should I just like, do I buffer it with context? Do you know what I'm saying? And to me, that is like really where your question takes me. Do you just let it ride and trust? But what am I wanting people to trust? You know, like that's the.
And who are you wanting to trust? Like, who is the audience for that line? I think is where that question comes in. Like, it's like, I know who I wish I was talking to, but then I know who I'm actually talking to. And then
what happens when you're talking to both of them? Like, what happens when you're talking to both of those groups? Maybe not, and maybe, and even if you don't value.
For one group, you're saying, this is who I am. I am exactly who you thought I was. And to the other group, you're saying, this is who we are, and we need to reckon with that, and we need to recognize that and be transparent about it.
Right. And I guess we do. I mean, the best art does both.
As your art always does, Kiese.
But it doesn't always do both. Okay, and you know what? Like, this is one of the reasons I was so happy that you agreed to say yes too, because one of the essays that I took out.
In what reality would I say no to this? Like,
Fam, you'll say. I feel like the dope shit about you is I don't never know what you're gonna say. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the fuck you gonna say. So this is a compliment, my nigga. Like, believe me. But like, when I took that Kanye essay out, for example, like, and I took it out for specific reasons, but like in that initial essay book, you know, some people laud that Kanye essay for like trying to deal with like black men and black women and black feminism and all of that. But you know what? That essay was trying to do way too much, and Kanye ain't who I thought he was, right? And I say some definitive things about who he essentially is that I couldn't substantiate anymore. And then also I was just like, since I'm really talking about my grandmother and my grandmother and her husband nearly dying, I was just like, I just need to get that Kanye part and my relationship to black feminism via Kanye's follies or fuck ups or whatever. I just need to get that shit tighter before I put it back out in the world. You know what I mean? But should we be given opportunities to write essays that like are fucked up? Like, that's what I wonder about us as like black writers, right? And I'm not saying we all coming in at the same portal of entry, but like, should we be able to write really fucked up essays that are kind of irresponsible? And then have people, you know, should we be able to do that bullshit? Because I don't want to be white and I don't want to write that shit that they write, but I do want to be able to write fucked up shit and have people who often love me tell me, yo, that's fucked up.
Well, I wrote that semi-fluid states of straightness essay about, and there was a trans woman who was on Twitter who was like, you know, cis women need to talk about their attraction to trans women more, but also here's where this went left.
Right.
And so anytime somebody reaches out to me about teaching that essay, I include that Twitter thread. I was like, sure, you can teach this, but you also need to teach this trans perspective alongside of it.
Right.
And a lot of people, you know, will be like, oh, that's so big of you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, not really. Like, I already got my check for that essay. I already have a big platform. Like, it literally takes nothing away from me to say, hey, here's some additional context. Here's some criticism of that essay. It doesn't change anything for me, but it changes things for trans folks who are living for of themselves out in the world. And I just think people need to take a beat and take a moment and realize that the things that they think are at stake are not always at stake when it comes to
absolutely. But as a critic, though, like, do you find yourself sometimes lauding writers who try to do things even if they've tried wholly unsuccessfully, or are you often like, that was a great try, but this is some trash that should have never been published? That's where I am with myself often. You know, I'm always like, sometimes I post some shit, I'm just like, damn, my nigga, like, you should have kept that one, you know?
I mean, I have those conversations with myself about like things I'm working on. And you know, like sometimes with like other writer friends, we'll pass an essay around and be like, ooh, this is, but I don't really have those conversations, you know, publicly so much anymore.
Right. Somebody just said, what's the name of the essay you just called out about cis women? They want to find it.
It's called Semi-Fluid States. I think it's Semi-Fluid States of Straightness. It's part of the long reads series that I did. And I was just kind of exploring like default straightness and how it's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. like it just doesn't make any sense. It's an absurd concept. And like generationally, we've kind of moved beyond that. But if you've been raised in this way, like how do you deal with your straightness and like how do you navigate it? And I mean, that was a hard essay to write. I was scared to write it. I was worried that like it was going to be harmful or toxic, but I think it was really just kind of one of those things where like in 5 or 10 years that essay might be cringeworthy, but it was like the essay, like it's kind of like rewatching the L Word. Like back in the day, the L Word was like, and now it's like, ooh, I don't know. So it's the same thing, but you know, somebody had to start the conversation. So
yeah, I've talked that essay with this other essay called Compulsory Heterosexuality. I don't know if you read that back in the day, but but the wonder is about where we are is that I think almost anything most people write that attempts to at least do some of the heavy work of interrogating the intersections of sexuality, gender, and place and race. If the culture and artists are doing what we're supposed to be doing, 2 or 3 months from now, that shit is supposed to feel a little, maybe not antiquated, but like off. Like that's what I think is so interesting about a lot of the folks who are writing like rigorously through like gender right now. You know what I mean? Like they really make you have to go back and revise every fucking thing you've ever written because like we're all, I mean, a lot of us are just such gender essentialists, and we are pushing a terrorizing gender essentialist notion of being in the world with everything we write. And so that's another thing I was thinking about when I was putting this reissue out. It's just like, I don't even think about a lot of things the same way, but definitely not gender or sexuality. So what should I do? And I didn't do what I should have done, which was to literally like rewrite that shit and never use essentialized notions of what, like use the words man, woman, girl, boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I struggle with that when talking about dating because, you know, obviously like my dating experience is very much anchored in being like a cishet woman. And so it's like, how do I write like in an expansive way, but also like staying kind of like close to how I experience those things in that moment. So like where are ways this needs to open up and where are ways this is just like, you picked up a book by this stray girl. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Right.
But that's why I like writing about dating, and like people really dismiss dating writing, and it's like, but dating is such a great vehicle to talk about race and gender and sexuality and class and consent and basically every politics, everything you can think of. Like it's the perfect vehicle to talk about these things, and then, you know, throw in a little humor.
Have you had people who you've written to or through or about be like, I read that. We need to talk.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Chevy from A Farewell to Fuckboys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you've read that essay, at the end of the essay, we obviously were not on speaking terms and had not been on speaking terms when I wrote the essay, published the essay. And I always like, but you know, like he follows me on Twitter. So I was like, I know he sees this shit blowing up. I wonder, like how strong is your self-control? Like my self-control is not that strong. Like if somebody's essay about me was blowing up, like I'd have to read it.
Right.
But I also was gonna like reach out to him about it. And then like maybe like a year and a half or so, sometime last year, I had like this just really weird dream. Just like a very innocent, sweet dream about us like brushing our teeth. And so I called him. He did not answer his phone, and then I left him a voicemail like, hey, hope you're doing well, I had this weird dream about you, and then I was like, oh crap, I sound like a crazy person. So then I DM'd him on Twitter just to like up the crazy and was like, hey, sorry I left you like that really weird voicemail. I'm not drunk, I am middle afternoon, very sober, and you know, just sorry for being a weirdo. And he wrote back, he was like, yeah, he's like, I've read that essay like 22 times. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'll read it. He's like, and I'll read it more. And like, he's like, he was just like going on about like how incredible the writing was and how like he has a better understanding of me. And he just kind of like sees the whole situation kind of differently. And he apologized for being like a fuckboy. And I think it helped a lot that I also owned my own messiness and shit in that too. Like I was equally.
Yeah, you did. I mean, you did. Right.
Like, I mean, I owned that and like the ways in which like I was being manipulative and just, you know, doing all sorts of things. And now we're both older and both more emotionally mature. And also there are dozens of states in between us. So we can have these grown-up conversations now that we live in different time zones. But yeah, like I didn't know what that was going to be like. And now I know. And so it was just kind of like, it was kind of a relief. I'm working on an essay upcoming for an anthology that I'm a little worried about because, you know, I'm still writing about dating, but a lot of that stuff that I was writing about happened in my 20s and in California. So now I'm like in Louisville writing about Louisville dating experiences with other Louisvillians in a city I will continue to reside in.
Yes, man.
So just kind of like thinking through the complexities of that because I'm still going to write these essays. Like, I don't think it's a secret that like I write about dating and relationships, and that's just kind of the risk you take if you date me. Like, you better be boring as hell. You better be on point. You better bring me flowers. You better not, you know, try any bullshit because I'm gonna find out because this is a small city, and then I'm gonna write about it. Those are the terms. Like, you know, it's not a secret.
You know, one of the things is so like one of the things that's so I think amazing about some of the people that I've written about, and like if I'm doing reporting and I have to talk to these people, and or if I'm doing like what I did in Heavy, you know, I talked to a woman who was my mother's student who molested me when I was a kid, and as a kid, like I enjoyed. I thought she was, you know, I was 8 or 9, 10, 8, 9. I was 9, 10, 11, and I thought this person was my girlfriend. Until some things happened, and I realized that was not what that relationship was. But when I was talking to her, it was so interesting because she just wanted to look fresh. Like she was like, when you describe me, like, you know, remind people that like I had the white felines. And so I took that detail and I gave it to another character because, you know, we have to make sometimes, you know, we have to make people look like they're not who they are sometimes when we do this sort of writing. But I was just like, that was the first time I'd ever had someone who identified as a woman who done harm, like want to be in a piece even more, because almost every dude who I interviewed was like, yeah, I did that. I shot that person. Like we engaged and, you know, we did all of that, but like, make sure you get my name right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, niggas is always, you know, motherfuckers that like the essay is the news camera and they be coming behind and they just be like, just make sure to like, my dress style was, I mean, you know, like you told me I had dimples. I'm like, my nigga, it's not that kind of book.
How responsible are you to say like, hey, like, I think you think this is going to go one way and this will potentially go a different way?
I mean, that's just what I'm saying, fam. It's like when I turned that book in, or when that book came out, I had a lot of people like, what did those boys in the beginning of the book say when they read what you wrote? And what they said was, most of them were like, I wish I could have been in the book even more, but thank you. And I my first scene of my memoirs are like, these dudes are raping a young girl. And these motherfuckers are like, nigga, did you remember that I had these wristbands that was like, you know what I'm saying, were fluorescent and nobody else had them. And so I just think it's interesting, like this desire sometimes to just be seen or to just be represented in particular art, you know? So when you said that about Chevy, I'm like, oh, wow, I did not think you were going to say that. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think that's how that was going to go down. I mean, the essay is called A Farewell to Fuckboys. Like, that's certainly not how I thought that was going to go down. But, you know, I'm glad. I'm relieved that you, and I mean, and to his credit, like he said, the writing was so good. Like, how can you be upset?
No, wait. How'd you feel when he said that? How'd you feel when he said that?
I felt kind of like, it was good.
I know. I knew you were gonna say that shit. I knew you were. That's so. I know my.
I wrote the hell out of that essay.
You did. Farewell to Fuckboys. Y'all need to read that if you haven't already.
You saw the early draft of that essay. I workshopped it at Bona, and then by the time it came out in long reads, like it was a totally different essay. Like, so I put in a lot of work in that essay.
Yeah.
The link to that essay is in the chat, by the way. I know someone shared it, so thank you. I just wanted to give you, we're 34 minutes in. So if you want to go through questions or, if you want to talk some more, that's fine too. Just wanted to give you a timestamp.
Let's see how good these questions are. Let's see what we got here.
Minda ain't no joke.
We got someone who wants to know how has writing been since the pandemic started. Someone else wants to know, what do you think the reason is for lack of diversity and voices sharing and being shared on Bookstagram and other media? White gatekeepers refusing to move aside. How has writing been for you? Oh, yeah, I guess those are the. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
yeah.
Go ahead.
And then what was the most challenging? Kiese, when you talk about revising, it feels like you're revising yourself when you're revising your writing. Can you please talk about that revision and writing process?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like when we revise, I don't want to be universal, but I feel like when I revise an essay, I am trying to revise a part of my body, a part of a slice of thought.
Yep.
I'm trying to get closer to what actually happened and to get clearer about the consequences of what happened going forward without being too heavy-handed. And then somebody asked, like, what was the hardest essay to revise in that collection? And, the author's note number 1, I turned into author's note number 2. So if you want to see like what I consider revision, you could read the author's note number 1, read the author's note number 2, and whatever. But also there was a piece in there called Our Kind of Ridiculous. And I've talked about this before, where that piece is still not done, but I was at Lilith Fair, and I was at Lilith Fair, and it was the first time I experienced anything like that. But I was loving that shit, fam. It was the Lilith Fair with the Dixie Chicks.
You didn't give us any Lilith Fair. You just said, and it wasn't my scene. There weren't people like me there, but I enjoyed myself. And then on the drive, I know. I want more about you being this tall black man at Lilith Fair. I need more details.
And like that essay, like there's a space for that. And like when I'm in that car and all of them Lilith Fair motherfuckers, I'm in the back of a police car because police have told me that I threw crack out of a window when I didn't, and I get thrown into the back of a car. Like that was a perfect time to look at that light, like these lights just going down the road freely, mostly white folks. And it's before I even get in the car, I'm handcuffed. And they're all looking at me.
Had like weed and coke on them.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! But that was a time that I should have done like a real heavy graph about what I saw at Lilith Fair and how like the seduction of that shit was like. I remember at the point I was like, oh wow, like we're all here experiencing this sort of like potentially revelatory music together. But then I'm just trying to go home and I'm just reminded immediately there's a difference, right? Anyway, but that's an essay that just needs to be revised again. I mean, I tried to do it, but I didn't do it well. I
hope y'all appreciated this real-time revision session. So.
Okay, but here's a real question for you too, because like you teach, like you are a teacher, and you are someone who it's like I was so happy when you and Danny like became friends because at least on the surface, y'all seem like the least what's the word I want to use? Like the least impressed people. Like y'all just don't appear to be easily impressed with much. And so do you care? One, is that true? And two, like, do you carry that into your relationships with your students' work?
I revel in everything. Like I am like excited. Like I wake up excited. Like
okay.
Just excited about like the specific shade of blue the sunshine is coming through my curtains. Like I wake up just excited about these moments in the day. With my students, I just have to try so the thing that I worry about most with my students, because like as you noticed, like I'm a pretty free speaker, And I never want to say anything or do anything that like crushes a young writer or imposes like what I think writing is or how I think writing should be on them. And so it's really hard to like constantly in real time be like in your space, in your flow where you feel like you have authority, but then also not impose that authority at the same time.
Right.
But then also need to impose that authority because you work within a university and they're going to expect you to give grades at this.
Right.
So yeah, that's a lot to navigate. One question I did want to ask you though, because I thought about this a lot, because I write about this a lot, is coming of age out of context. So, you know, you spent your 20s outside of Mississippi. I was in Southern California. And I just kind of think about how that experience really kind of calls into question everything you are, everything that's Southern about you, because you're in these places that are kind of more celebrated. You know, LA is more celebrated, New York City is more celebrated than wherever you're from. And in some ways, it's good to have like everything that like makes you called into question so you can explore that. But then in some ways, like it's very like destructive.
Right.
Too, you know?
Yeah. But what is the it? Is the coming of age in that place, that like canonical place, or is that the it? What's the it?
I think that it is that just like that dissonance that you experience, because I think especially at that age in your early 20s, like you think life is this way, the way that life has been presented to you, and then you go someplace else, you experience other people and realize that there's a lot of different ways that life can be. And actually there's a lot of different ways that you can be. Like you're not,
no doubt.
You're like, you know, you're like a Jello mold. You thought you were a Jello mold, but then somebody left you out in the sunshine and you got a little wobbly. So.
Absolutely, fam. You know what? Like like I think about that in relationship to like how little Vassar College is in this revision. You know what I mean? Like I wrote this essay called "My Vassar College ID Makes Everything Okay," and that essay is like the most. I mean, that I've had a few essays go viral, but like that essay was the most viral piece I've ever written. And then like when I was putting this reissue in this collection, different people were like, "Yo, I can't wait to see that one in there," and I was just like, nah, I can't put that one in there. You know what I mean? Because that was what I'm saying. Like, you know, and that was a coming of age out of context essay. But fam, like I was trying to burn everything down. You know what I mean? And I burnt down relationships with that essay. I mean, it got me to heavy. That essay got me to heavy. And sometimes you gotta be okay with that. But that doesn't mean that I need to like put that essay up on the podium again, because that essay fucked me up. It fucked up some of my relationships. It fucked up my relationship with a place that was wholly fucking destructive, but also wholly liberatory, because some of my relationships with like people in this Poughkeepsie were liberatory. But I feel you. And also I feel like institutionalization is really tough. You know, like yes, I've never not been in school. You know what I'm saying? Like I was born on a college campus, went to fucking high school, went to college, got kicked out of Millsaps, went to Jackson State, went to Oberlin, went to Indiana, taught at Vassar for 15 years, went to University of Mississippi, taught at Iowa, went back to University of Mississippi. And like sometimes I wonder, like, not just about how stunted that has made me in some particular ways, but also wonder if it's been like, if there's something like to laud in growing up, coming of age in academic institutions, you know, or with those institutions as a shadow. I'm not sure.
It makes you really good at like skewering academia. I remember I taught heavy in the spring, and you had that whole section about yourself as a professor, and I was like chuckling, and my students were like,
right.
I was like, this is what it's like to be a professor. Like,
right.
Y'all,
right.
Don't respect us.
Right. But I feel like that move had to be made it heavy, because most of the book I'm skewering all the teachers I had, you know, and then when I become one, I just do a lot of the same damage and more. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So let's talk. We got a little bit of time left, but let me ask you this: like, what are you working on now that you feel like most like joyful about, or what are you thinking about working on now that you feel most joyful about?
Oh, well, the thing, I mean, taunt is what I feel most joyful about, because you know, you saw those very honest Facebook posts where like I flipped the table on my local alt weekly as well as Louisville startup community, And then a couple weeks later, got into this Google startup boot camp for independent news organizations. So it was like, I told you all you were terrible and I was great. And now the nation knows. So Taunt's been doing really well. Thank you so much for your support of Taunt. But the greatest thing about it is that, you know, I've been able to publish all of these writers of color, all these Black writers, all these queer writers, giving some people their first bylines, some people the first time that they got paid a respectable rate for their work, getting them to see themselves differently as creatives. And I think that that's really causing a ripple effect in Louisville. And, you know, I was real upset last week or the week before because I had some older white dude hit me up on Facebook asking me if I would write for his publication that he wants to launch for free. And I was like, well, I launched the publication that pays writers. So
yeah.
And then he was like, oh, well, I've been off social media. I haven't really, you know, done that. I didn't know. But yeah, it seems like you're trying to do a lot of what we're trying to do and like what we aspire to and blah, blah. I was like, no. I'm doing it. Like I'm doing it and I'm paying people for it. And I think
can I ask you, Minda, about like the vision, but also, you know, one of the things you said to me once when I was talking about Taunt is like, you know, it's by Louisville for Louisville.
Yeah.
But can we talk about how that is absolutely true? And like, what do you think the eyes of the world outside of Louisville, like, how do you all work with, like, you know, trying to keep this wonderful Louisville magazine, like, give it breath, but also giving it breath might mean representing Louisville to people who don't even know nothing about Louisville. Do you have to deal with that tension at all?
You know, I've certainly had folks who are not from Louisville who've been reading it, and, you know, and I think they just appreciate it for what it is and like getting like this kind of different slice and view of what Louisville actually is. And then my hope is that a lot of these writers and creatives that get their start in Taunt then go on to be published in larger publications. And so then you have this Louisville perspective reaching beyond Louisville in that way. You know, a lot of people ask me if I'm going to publish any of my own work in Taunt. I was like, I think that's kind of tacky to like publish my own work in my own publication.
Right.
But also, like, I think it draws more attention to the publication when I publish my work elsewhere and people see that, that Taunt in my bio. So that's what I'm really kind of most excited about. I'm working on an essay for an anthology about having big second wife energy. Like, this past year has been the year of like recent divorcee men, like, you know, wanting to shoot their shot. So just kind of like thinking about like, what does that mean to come second, you know?
Second wife energy. Is that a thing?
Especially if the first wife was white, like it's like, ooh, what are we getting into? What's this dynamic? So, you know, I'm gonna write some shit that scares me along that topic. And then this morning I was thinking about white gatekeepers, as I frequently do. And I was thinking about how an essential part of like my Black ass childhood was hopping fences. And I was like, and you know, like now metaphorically as an adult, like I'm hopping these gates. And I think about Kamala and how she was saying you can be the first, but you can't be the last. So just kind of like weaving all of those things together into this whole thing about how like these gatekeepers, like we're at the gate, but they're acting like we're at their throats, you know? So,
that's it, my G. Like, I mean, if there was a sentence to speak about like my state, I was like, yeah, we at the gates. And I mean, like in my state, they're so convinced that if and when we get quote unquote power, we're gonna do what white folks did to us. But we're not. You know what I'm saying? We might do something that might be more painful, which is to ask y'all motherfuckers to look inside you, which just hurts a lot more than slice of your neck. But we not trying to do that. Right?
No, that's what Baldwin said. Baldwin said, like, you can't treat somebody like an animal without becoming an animal. So I'm not trying to, like, muss up, like, you know, get my soul all musty on your behalf.
Ooh, let them know.
I just want to be able to live my life in peace. That's all I want. So.
Yes. I feel that, fam. All right. I got one more big concept, one more big question. Ambition and hunger. Are they the same thing for you?
You know what? I was talking to some folks a couple weeks ago, and they were asking me about how like my writing kind of straddles this world between like memoir and essay. And like, you know, what am I going to do about this? And I was like, Kiese gave us the blueprint with heavy, and I'm just going to follow the blueprint. Oh. And they were like, that's really ambitious.
Really?
I was like, I don't aspire to mediocre.
Wow. They thought that was ambitious, huh?
But I don't think it's ambitious. I think it's just like, we know how to do this. Like,
right.
We know right. Stuff. I feel confident. I'm coming.
It's like, are you ambitious if you know what you deserve? Like, that's what I mean. Is that ambition, or is that hunger? You know what I'm saying? Like, I often think of myself, even now, as still like a hungry writer who's been told no every single time, even though now people say yes before I ask, which makes me feel a lot of things. But like, do you ever think, like, where are you on your hunger meter, and where are you in your ambition meter that you've been over like the past? Are you hungrier and or more ambitious than you ever been, or like, is it much more complicated?
I think it's more complicated. I think I made that Facebook post after you did the Emmett Till reading. Like, I feel it feels more possible because I see you, you know, Janisha over at the Atlantic. You're over there at Vanity Fair. We got black faces over here at Harper's. So now it just feels more possible. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like I can see this path. It's a lot more clear. And, you know, I like, you know, that's what I'm like headed down. So I don't know necessarily that I'm hungrier or more ambitious, but I'm certainly more confident and more certain and less willing to be told no. Like, you know, right. Like I'm more like the mindset of like, you can help me and get to be a part of this success story, or you can try to stand in my way and be a part of the, you know, the thing that we chuckle about on these Zoom calls.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Like, right. It's like, what we gonna do? Like, we gonna go in here together, or you gonna watch me? Because I'm going. Like,
I'm going. Yeah. And people know. Like, people know. So I don't know why you don't know, but
okay. Know. And this is like connected to a lot of like the writing that I've read of yours that is just so like incredible, and like seeing you like build taunt, and also being in a classroom with you in Philadelphia, like which I'm not sure we can talk about in this space, but like do you make rejection, like, do you turn all rejection into fuel, or like, because you seem like you do, but like what do you do with rejection?
I just remember being in that elevator with you after that workshop, and you just being like,
that was a lot, fam. There was a lot going on in that workshop that had very little to do with the work.
Yeah, I flip rejection into momentum. And, you know, like with the whole taunt thing, there were people at the local Alt Weekly that I won't name by name that were really upset about that and felt like I was misconstruing the situation. It's like, nah, like you made this choice, and then I just flipped it into momentum. So like, why shouldn't I find a way to benefit from your terrible decision making? So yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't want to say, like, I'm sure there are absolutely times which like I get rejected and I just want to throw myself, you know, a little pity party, or I give up on things. But I just think there's something about once you get into your 30s and you have this kind of longer view, you know, like when I was in undergrad, I remember I had a professor where I like turned in my piece for workshop, and she was like, this isn't of the quality to be in this classroom. Like, she said that in front of everyone at workshop. And I haven't written fiction since. I have not written fiction since. And now, you know, now I'm the director of a whole undergraduate creative writing program. Right. So it becomes really hard to believe those things when people try to tear down what you know that you're capable of, like, because you can see the long view. You like, I can see little Minda being heartbroken, and now Minda today. So it's like, just because somebody else doesn't see the vision doesn't mean it isn't real.
Yeah, and I just think, you know what, man, I just think it's so crucial that we look at the lineage of Black writers who come before us, who, even though they've had like astronomical success, have still been rejected into the place of poverty by the time that they die. You know what I'm saying?
Nora.
Exactly. Like Zora, Richard Wright had nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and so like that, there's a lot of reasons for that. But a lot of that has to do, I think, with like rejection of ideas when people have proven themselves worthy as like incredible, intricate idea makers. You know what I'm saying? And the politics of their both of their ideas were like not cool until they were cool, and then they were cool. Like they wanted them to make the same shit again, and they both wanted to do something different. They wanted to be artists, right? And so anyway, I wanted to do like this like virtual book tour thing with people who, one, I know love us deeply, two, who like I'm just jealous of in a lot of ways, and again, fam, I just want to say your pen is ill, cuz like you know, like I just want to say thank you for putting the layers, because I think when you read Minda's work, there's always that one layer that you could have just used that one layer to get us through the story, but there's always like a subaltern layer, and then there's always a higher layer. There's always like these like voices that like come out that I never expected. So I want to thank you for pushing me to be a better writer, and particularly a better essayist. And thank you for doing this tonight.
It's just so not true.
What you fucking mean? You don't do that.
You're like one of the most celebrated living essayists of our time, trying to make me believe that I make you a better writer. This is just absurd.
You knew it's like you knew me way before these white folk thought I could do some shit.
No,
like,
but I knew. I told you, like, I read your book, and then I paused and I looked at the cover and I was like, yes, like this is the type of writer that I want to be. You, Melissa Phoebos, Maya, Heartberries.
Fam, we don't talk about Teresa enough. We you know what? We don't talk about Teresa enough because Heartberries, like I think Heartberries shifted like the memoir fucking like genre. Like
that and Carmen Marie Machado's Dream House.
Ooh, monster. I can't even like I was gonna do this book where I was playing with horror. I had to scrap it. I read that shit. I was like, fuck that shit. You can't do it. I can't do it. She already did it. But you know, we all up there together. So I just want to say thank you for real for the work you do, for loving us, and for being so committed to texture, because that's what we need, and that's what we, you know, most of these gatekeepers or whatever, if they let us in, sometimes they don't want the texture. So like, thank you for demanding that the texture be foregrounded. I appreciate that for real.
Thank you just so much for being so instrumental in my career from the very beginning. If y'all don't know, Kiese is the first person to publish my work. So, you know, and he's just been a big supporter to this day. And I cannot wait to see my book on my shelf with that Kiese blurb on the front of it. He writes the best blurbs, y'all.
I'm ready, cuz. Thank you for real, fam.
Great. Yeah, everyone give a virtual round of applause in the chat. That was such a wonderful, lovely talk. Thank you so much, Kiese and Minda. And thank you to everyone who, you know, joined us tonight. If you came in late, don't worry. We have a replay available. It'll be up within an hour. Just use the same stream link. You can also pass that link on to your friends who weren't able to make it today. And also, if you would like to purchase a copy of tonight's featured book, just click on the green purchase button directly below the viewer's screen. And I think that's about it. Stay safe, everyone, and take care. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Vroman.
Have a great night. Thank you.